A few weeks back, my kids and I, my youngest scored some tickets to the Tampa Bay Lightning. And they weren't just tickets, they were in a very nice suite, which is important, and I'll get to that. Now, I had not been in, and hockey will never replace football for me, but it's fun to go to. And I had never been in the stadium since the new owners bought it and fixed it up. It's pretty amazing. I mean, it's pretty cool. They've obviously invested a lot. There's lights flashing and music blaring and an organ up there and some dopey-looking mascot running around and cheerleaders. And when that goes bad, the guys come out with a Zamboni and it's going on and they're bringing food and all kinds of delightful beverages to you. I don't even know who won the game. It was like taking a 72-ounce cup of Red Bull or a venti with 5 shots of espresso. It was like overstimulation. And I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old, but I couldn't keep up. It was amazing. And when I left, I began to think about it. We go into that environment and we might think that that's just a microcosm, that that's just there, but in many ways, my experience in that place was a reflection of really the society and the world we've made. A society and a culture where if we are not mesmerized, enchanted, and entranced every second, we get bored. We get bored, we lose interest, we zone out, we move on. There is very little focus, and certainly not a real long-term commitment. I have 700 or more channels on my TV set, and I can still sit there and not find something I want to watch. That's sad. I mean, truly, when you think about it, I am old enough to remember when you had 3 channels, right? And the TV went blank at midnight. Don't you remember that? It went, yeah. Several years ago, Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Outliers. Fascinating book, and I like him as an author. He takes on some interesting subjects, tipping point and so forth. But in this book, he was trying to study and look at modern culture and what makes some people stand out. What makes some people so tremendously successful, and not just like financially successful, but world-changing successful. What common characteristics do they have? So he looked at people like Steve Jobs, and he looked at people like Bill Gates, and he looked at John, Paul, Ringo, and George. And the question he entertained was, is it just a matter of the right people at the right place at the right time? Or is there something else that's going on? And the common thread he found among all those people is that before they reached their point of success, where it was really world-changing, life-altering for all of us in many respects, they had already invested 20 to 30,000 hours of their time in what they were passionate about. And that's pretty interesting. I started counting up how many hours I've spent preaching. I don't know that I've gotten there yet. 20 to 30,000 hours. And of course, when I read the last chapter and he kind of shared that, I'm thinking, well, duh. I mean, really, we have to be told that to be successful in life, you have to be focused, you have to be purposeful, you have to be passionate. We have to be told that? I guess we do. I guess in the world that we have made, we do. Because there is always something out there trying to turn your head, catch your attention, get you to go this way, not that. Always some. You can't even fill gas without having some screen in front of you playing something at some stations. Anybody here watch Shark Tank? Nobody? Am I the only person? 700 channels, man, Friday night, 9 o'clock. Shark Tank, it's a program where they're billionaires. People come, would-be entrepreneurs come, they make a presentation of their product, some of which I'm thinking are pretty goofy, but obviously sell. That says something about us too. But anyway, it's fascinating to me as they have these billionaires who are characters, they become television personalities, but I've watched them to try and figure out what's the pattern of the people who present, the would-be entrepreneurs, what's the pattern of the people that certain billionaires gravitate towards? Some it's about the bottom line, how much money will it make, and others will it sell on television, on QVC, and others is it tech. And I watch with fascination Mark Cuban, who made his money with broadcast originally and is well known as the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. But I watch him, and he always perks up, not about the product, but about the person. And what grabs his attention is how vested is the person? How much skin do they have in the game? How focused are they? And if they are, it really doesn't matter what they're presenting. He sits forward in his seat because he wants someone who has an intense focus and says, I will do whatever it takes to make this happen. It's a characteristic that sets people apart. It is a characteristic that makes things happen. It is a characteristic that we seem to want to destroy in our society today by all the distractions that we have. I drive a car and all it's got is a speedometer because my ADD would go crazy if I had one of those electronic gadgets in the center doing that. I would have a wreck for sure. Always. How did we live without a map in the center of our dashboard? I think it's for entertainment as much as anything else, truly. Well, it will be. Mark my word. They'll figure out somehow how they can get ads onto that thing. I guarantee it. Well, the Apostle Paul in the book of Philippians, he jumps on this in his own time and place. The Apostle Paul tells the disciples in the early church, he says, if you want to follow Christ, if you want your life to be different, if you want the world to change, you have to be focused, you have to be purposeful, you have to be even a fool. He said you have to be a fool for Christ. And what he means is not you have to be stupid or dumb. He says, but what you do will seem foolish to the rest of the world. Remember Jesus' parable about the wedding feast? The bride's, what are they called? Bridesmaids? Anyway, the ladies that stand up here with the bride. They didn't have their oil. They weren't ready, distracted by other things. Paul says, the world will tell you should be doing this, and I'm telling you being this, and the world's going to say you are foolish doing that, and I'm telling you you're right on target. What am I saying? What's this got to do with our text today? When Jesus goes to Jerusalem on this Sunday, on Holy Sunday, on Passion Sunday, and he rides into that city, what's going on there can only be measured. It's only in our culture equivalent to the Daytona 500, the Super Bowl, the March Madness, the World Cup, all taking place in one place on one day. Bam. And he rides into that setting, and people are saying, here comes the King. Here comes the Great One on a liberation holiday. Here comes the one who's going to make a difference. And Jesus doesn't take the bait. He doesn't bite. He stays focused and purposeful, even though it would be much easier to give in and to pick up the crown instead of the cross. You know, it's like a reversal of the temptation at the beginning of Matthew, where the devil takes him on a peak and he says, all you got to do is this, bow down to me, and the whole world will be yours. That's the moment in Jerusalem. It can be yours, Jesus. Would have been easy. He doesn't take the bait. When Joe Montana, the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, retired, they said, what's the hardest part about retiring? And he said, the hardest part about retiring is not having 80,000 people chant your name. A lot would happen between this moment of decision and Jesus' time of demise on Friday. The days were full, much needed to be done. And the cheers of this day would fade. He knew that. The cheers of this world, friends, always fade. All those people you think are important in your life when you're young, they run away somehow. You know? The cheers that we think will make us disappear. The accolades of the age always do. But the results stemming from Christ's conviction and the cross had eternal consequences. And he stayed focused. In the movie Pirates of the Caribbean, I love that movie. I like Jack Sparrow. He's a lot like me, or I'd like to be. Anyway. What are you laughing at, really? But Jack Sparrow walks around with a compass that doesn't work, which is really illustrative of his lostness. I think a lot of us are like that. Jesus was not. Jesus was not. And we are called to not be as well. For as Christians, the cross always stands at the center of our worship. It always stands at the center of our life and our faith to be our true north, our plumb line, our direction finder, reminding us, even when we do not like what it stands for and the sacrificial living it calls us to be about. It reminds us of where we should invest ourselves, where we get skin in the game, where we change ourselves at heart and soul and mind, where we should invest our passions that we might find purpose. Not our purposes, but because the best ones are the ones God gives us. It's just that we don't give God a chance. We don't. We always get sidetracked by this or by that or by other things. Someone asked me, I don't remember if it was a confirmand or someone else, someone asked me why they put a cross on the top of the steeple. It's an interesting point. You know, at one time when they built churches and cathedrals, the steeple was the highest point in any city. It was the centering point, right? So that people knew where to go and what it was about. And in today's society, it's not quite that way, is it? Today, it is certainly not the tallest building in any city. It's not the center out there. But that doesn't matter if it's the center in here. It doesn't matter. Because the biggest of cathedrals and the largest of congregations and the tallest of towers or the most magnificent of churches mean nothing if the commitment to sacrificial living and service is not in here. Nothing. It's all empty. Even the church gets sidetracked. A year or so ago, my wife brought back from Turkey, because she knows I like to collect artwork, Christian artwork from around the world. She brought back this mosaic, and I've seen them make this mosaic, or mosaics like this, where they cut, the stones, they cut it out and then lay it there and so forth. In fact, when we go to Israel, in Jordan, there is a place in Jordan that makes Christian artwork like this that employs people with disabilities. It's the only work they can do. So it's particularly meaningful. But when she brought it back, I have to admit, this one did not catch my fancy. right? In fact, I didn't unwrap it till today. How long's it been? 2 years. Sat in my office, wrapped up, didn't unwrap it till today. And you say, why? Why? Say, why? Okay, there we go. And this is not a shot, believe me. But theologically, it was too Catholic. It just was. And that's not saying it doesn't work for other people, but when I looked at it, I'm saying, well, that didn't still work so much. Until I started thinking about all of this and preaching these series of sermons on the cross, and what bothered me was the heart thing. It just seemed kind of gross. I mean, it just didn't work for me. I can't say anything. It just didn't work for me. Until I started to think about the heart not as a heart, I started thinking about it as Jesus being the heart of God. And then when I looked at this, because the hands, by the way, the hands here, that if you want to make a hand signal for God, that's it. When you see a priest do that, that's what it is. It's God's blessing. So it's right here. So I saw this as Jesus being in God's heart, but then when I was writing this sermon, I thought, but maybe that's you and me in Jesus' heart. Changed everything. Changed everything for me. Because when we think about Jesus at the heart of God, that's one thing. But then when we see this Jesus who could have done all this other stuff but stays focused and directed, knowing exactly what that week will bring, and I'm in his heart, you don't forget that. You don't forget that. It challenges us to see ourselves in the heart of Christ. It challenges us to keep Christ in our hearts as well, which is really the best understanding I can give you of the cross, period. Whether you hang one on your wall, you wear it around your neck, you tattoo it on your back or your arm, the important thing is that you keep Christ at the center of your heart. It is the plumb line. It is the purpose. It becomes the focus. It reminds us not merely of whose you are, but who you are called to be. And what I offer to you or submit to you, that if you do this, it will give you strength and hope, purpose, and direction. And maybe if you do this, it just will have the power to quiet all that other loud and senseless, mind-numbing, mind-boggling noise that we all face in this world. Amen.